This video contains audio content only. There are no visual elements or images accompanying the audio. If you're expecting to see video footage, please note that this is an intentional audio-only presentation. We recommend listening to this content rather than watching the screen. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy the audio. Hello and welcome, cultural explorers and curious minds. Today, we're diving deep into a fascinating phenomenon that's sweeping across China and captivating the world's attention. It's a movement that's challenging long-held notions of success, work ethic, and the very fabric of society itself. I'm talking about Tang, or as it's known in English, lying flat. Now, you might be wondering, what's so revolutionary about lying down? Well, my friends, prepare to have your minds blown. This isn't just about taking a casual nap or lounging around on a lazy Sunday. No, Tang represents a radical shift in thinking, a rebellion against the intense pressures of modern life, and a bold reimagining of what it means to live a fulfilling existence. Imagine a world where the rat race comes to a screeching halt. Where young people reject the grueling 996 work culture. That's 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. In favor of a more relaxed, minimalist lifestyle. A world where the pursuit of material success takes a backseat to personal well-being and inner peace. This is the world of Tang, and it's sending shockwaves through Chinese society and beyond. But Tang isn't just a Chinese phenomenon. It's tapping into a global undercurrent of discontent with the relentless demands of late-stage capitalism. From quiet quitting in the West to Japan's hikikomori, shut-ins, we're seeing a worldwide reevaluation of work, success, and the good life. As we explore the Tang movement, we'll uncover its origins in the depths of Chinese social media, examine how it's challenging the very foundations of China's economic miracle, and consider its broader implications for the future of work and society. We'll hear stories of young people who've embraced the lying flat lifestyle, and we'll grapple with the government's attempts to stamp out what it sees as a dangerous threat to social stability and national progress. So, whether you're a burned-out worker dreaming of escape, a social observer fascinated by cultural shifts, or simply someone curious about how other people around the world are reimagining their lives, this exploration of Tang has something for you. Buckle up, or perhaps I should say, lie back and relax, as we embark on this journey into one of the most intriguing cultural movements of our time. 1. The origins and philosophy of Tang, from online meme to cultural movement. Let's start at the beginning, shall we? Picture this. It's April 2021, and a young man named Luo Huazhang decides he's had enough. Enough of the grind, enough of the pressure, enough of a society that seems to demand every ounce of his energy and still want more. So what does he do? He takes to the Chinese internet forum Baidu Tieba and makes a post that would ignite a cultural firestorm. Luo, who goes by the username, Kind-Hearted Traveler, shares his manifesto. Lying flat is my wise movement, he declares. Only by lying down can humans become the measure of all things. It's a statement that's part philosophy, part protest, and entirely relatable to millions of young Chinese feeling crushed under the weight of societal expectations. But Luo isn't just talking the talk. He's walking the walk, or perhaps more accurately, lying the lie. He describes how he quit his factory job in 2016, cycled 1,300 miles from Sichuan to Tibet, and now lives a minimalist lifestyle in his hometown. He gets by on odd jobs and savings, prioritizing leisure and personal freedom over career advancement and material accumulation. This wasn't just idle chatter. Luo's post struck a chord, resonating deeply with a generation facing skyrocketing housing prices, intense workplace competition, and a sense that the promised rewards of hard work were slipping further and further out of reach. The post went viral, spawning countless memes, discussions, and a whole new lexicon around the concept of lying flat. But what exactly does it mean to lie flat in this context? It's not about literal physical posture, but a state of mind. It's a rejection of societal pressures to constantly strive, compete, and consume. Instead, Tang advocates argue for doing the bare minimum to get by, embracing a low-desire lifestyle, and finding contentment in simplicity. This philosophy has deep roots in Chinese thought. Some have compared it to the ancient Taoist concept of wu wei, or non-action. Others see echoes of Buddhist detachment from worldly concerns. But Tang is also thoroughly modern, a direct response to the breakneck pace of China's economic development and the toll it's taken on the younger generation. Consider the story of Chen, a 28-year-old software engineer in Shenzhen. She used to work 12-hour days, chasing promotions and dreaming of buying a home in one of the world's most expensive real estate markets. I was constantly exhausted, anxious, and felt like I was running on a treadmill that kept getting faster, she says. Then she discovered Tang. Now, Chen works part-time, lives in a small rented apartment, and spends her free time reading, meditating, and connecting with friends. I may have less money, she admits, but I have so much more life. The Tang movement quickly spawned its own subculture. Social media filled with images of people literally lying flat, often accompanied by captions extolling the virtues of their new lifestyle. T-shirts emblazoned with slogans like, "Do nothing, lie flat youth," became hot commodities. Online forums dedicated to discussing Tang strategies and experiences sprung up overnight. But it wasn't just about dropping out of the rat race. Tang became a lens through which young Chinese could critique the intense pressure cooker of their society. They questioned the wisdom of sacrificing health and happiness for a chance at material success that seemed increasingly out of reach. They pushed back against the idea that one's worth is measured solely by career achievements and financial status. Take the case of Liu, a former high-flying investment banker who embraced Tang after a health scare. "I was making great money, but I was also on the verge of a nervous breakdown," he recounts. "One day, I just couldn't get out of bed. That's when I realized I needed to radically change my life." Now, Liu teaches yoga part-time and runs a small online business selling handmade crafts. "I make a fraction of what I used to," he says, "but I've never been happier or healthier." The Tang philosophy also intersects with growing environmental awareness among Chinese youth. By rejecting consumerism and embracing minimalism, many see it as a way to reduce their environmental impact. "Why should I work myself to death just to buy things I don't need?" asks Zhang, a self-described Tang adherent. "It's not good for me, and it's not good for the planet." As the movement gained traction, it began to evolve. Some proponents advocated for a more moderate approach, arguing that one could embrace the spirit of Tang while still pursuing meaningful work and personal growth. Others pushed for more radical interpretations, calling for a complete withdrawal from conventional society. The debate raged online and off. Was Tang a legitimate lifestyle choice or a cop-out? A necessary corrective to an overly materialistic culture or a threat to social stability and economic progress? As we'll see, these questions would soon attract the attention of authorities, transforming Tang from a mere internet phenomenon into a full-blown cultural and political flashpoint. But before we delve into the government's response and the broader implications of the movement, it's worth pausing to reflect on what Tang reveals about the changing aspirations and values of China's youth. In rejecting the relentless pursuit of success as defined by their parents' generation, these young people are carving out new definitions of a life well lived. They're questioning long-held assumptions about progress, happiness, and the social contract. In many ways, Tang is a uniquely Chinese response to universal questions. How much is enough? What really matters in life? How do we balance individual fulfillment with social responsibility? As we continue our exploration, keep these questions in mind. They'll help us understand not just Tang but the broader shifts happening in China and around the world. 2. Tang versus 996 culture. Rejecting China's intense work ethic. Now, let's dive into the eye of the storm, shall we? To truly understand the revolutionary nature of Tang we need to grasp what it's pushing against. And that, my friends, is the notorious 996 work culture that has come to dominate much of China's corporate landscape, especially in the tech sector. Imagine this. You wake up at the crack of dawn, rush to the office by 9 a.m., and then work until 9 p.m. 6 days a week. That's the 996 schedule, and it's not just some extreme case. It's the norm for millions of Chinese workers. It's a culture that glorifies overwork, equates exhaustion with dedication, and treats burnout as a badge of honor. The origins of 996 can be traced back to China's economic reforms of the 1980s and the subsequent decades of breakneck growth. As the country raced to catch up with the developed world, A culture of intense competition and relentless ambition took hold. Work became not just a means to an end, but a virtue in itself. The ability to endure long hours and high pressure was seen as a sign of strength and commitment. Take the case of Jack Ma, the billionaire founder of Alibaba. In 2019, he sparked controversy by calling the 996 schedule a huge blessing. If we find things we like, 996 is not a problem, he declared. If you don't like your work, every minute is torture. This attitude isn't unique to Ma. Many of China's most successful entrepreneurs have endorsed similar views, reinforcing the idea that extreme overwork is the path to success. But here's the kicker: 996 is actually illegal under Chinese labor law, which stipulates a 44-hour workweek. Yet it persists, often through a combination of explicit expectations and implicit pressure. Workers who don't conform risk being labeled as lazy or uncommitted, potentially jeopardizing their career prospects. The human toll of this culture is staggering. Consider the story of a 22-year-old employee at Pinduoduo, one of China's largest e-commerce platforms. In December 2020, she collapsed while walking home from work at 1:30 a.m. and later died. Her death ignited a firestorm of criticism about the company's work culture and reignited debates about the costs of 996. Or take Zhang, a former programmer at a major tech company in Shenzhen. I was working so much that I barely saw my family, he recounts. I missed my daughter's first steps, her first words. One day, I realized I was becoming a stranger to my own child. Zhang's wake-up call came in the form of a stress-induced hospitalization. The doctor told me if I didn't change my lifestyle, I might not live to see my daughter grow up. It's against this backdrop that Tang emerges as a radical alternative. Where 996 demands constant striving, Tang advocates for doing just enough. Where 996 glorifies sacrifice for the sake of company and country, Tang prioritizes individual well-being and personal fulfillment. The contrast couldn't be starker. 996 says, work harder, sleep less, buy more. Tang responds, work less, rest more, want less. It's a direct challenge to the foundational myths of China's economic miracle. That prosperity comes through sacrifice, that success is measured in yuan and square footage, that the path to happiness lies in climbing the corporate ladder. But it's not just about rejecting overwork. Tang also questions the very goals that 996 culture claims to be working towards. In a society where skyrocketing housing prices have put homeownership out of reach for many young people, where the costs of raising a child are prohibitive, and where social mobility seems increasingly limited, the promises of 996 ring hollow. Why should I work myself to death for a house I'll never be able to afford? Asks Lin, a 26-year-old who recently quit her job at a prestigious consulting firm to pursue a more relaxed lifestyle. I'd rather have time to enjoy life now than sacrifice everything for a future that might never come. The tension between 996 and Tang plays out in countless ways across Chinese society. In offices, where Tang adherents might refuse overtime or decline to participate in after-work socializing. In families, where children embracing Tang clash with parents who see hard work as the only path to security. In relationships, where differing attitudes towards work and ambition can create rifts. Consider the story of Mei and Jun, a young couple in Beijing. Mei, a marketing executive, fully bought into the 996 lifestyle, seeing it as her ticket to career success and financial stability. Jun, on the other hand, was drawn to the simplicity and freedom promised by Tang. Their differing views led to constant conflict. I thought he was lazy and irresponsible, Mei admits. He thought I was killing myself for nothing. Eventually, they found a compromise. Mei scaled back her hours, while Jun took on more work to contribute financially. We're both happier now, Jun says. We've found a balance that works for us. But the impact of Tang extends beyond individual lives and relationships. It's forcing a broader societal reckoning with the costs and benefits of China's development model. Companies are being compelled to reassess their work cultures, with some high-profile firms publicly renouncing 996 schedules. There's growing recognition that burnout and dissatisfaction among young workers could have serious long-term consequences for productivity and innovation. Moreover, the Tang movement is contributing to a shift in how success and fulfillment are defined. It's part of a broader trend among Chinese youth towards valuing experiences over possessions, personal growth over career advancement, and quality of life over quantity of wealth. This shift has profound implications for everything from consumer behavior to family planning to urban development. Yet, it's important to note that Tang isn't a monolithic movement with a single set of beliefs or practices. For some, it's a complete rejection of conventional career paths and societal expectations. For others, it's more about finding a sustainable work-life balance within the existing system. The common thread is a desire to reclaim agency over one's time and energy, to define success on one's own terms rather than accepting society's default metrics. As we move forward in our exploration, keep in mind the stark contrast between the 996 culture and the Tang philosophy. This tension between relentless striving and intentional slowing down, between societal expectations and individual desires, is at the heart of many of the challenges and changes facing contemporary China. It's a microcosm of the broader struggles playing out as the country grapples with the consequences of its rapid development and seeks to chart a course for the future. 3. Government reactions and censorship. The CCP's battle against lying flat. Now, my friends, we come to the part of our story where things get, shall we say, a bit more complicated. You see, in China, no social movement exists in a vacuum. The watchful eye of the state is always present, and when it comes to Tang that eye has been growing increasingly wary. At first, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, seemed unsure how to respond to the Tang phenomenon. Was it just another internet fad that would fizzle out on its own? Or was it something more significant, a potential threat to the social order and economic goals that the party has staked its legitimacy on? As Tang gained momentum, spreading from online forums to real-world actions and attitudes, the government's stance began to harden. State media outlets started publishing editorials criticizing the movement. The party-affiliated Guangming Daily wrote, "The lying down community obviously isn't good for the country's economic and social development." Another commentary in Xinhua, the state news agency, went further, declaring that lying flat is shameful. But why such a strong reaction to what might seem, on the surface, like a harmless lifestyle choice? To understand this, we need to delve into the CCP's vision for China's future and the social contract it has with its citizens. Since the economic reforms of the late 1970s, the party has based much of its legitimacy on its ability to deliver economic growth and improve living standards. The implicit bargain has been, accept one-party rule and in return, you'll have the opportunity for a better life than your parents had. This bargain has held for decades, as China's economy has grown at a breakneck pace, lifting hundreds of millions out of poverty. But Tang threatens to upset this delicate balance. If young people reject the pursuit of material success and opt out of the rat race, what happens to China's economic ambitions? How can the country achieve its goal of becoming a fully developed, modern socialist nation by 2049, the centenary of the People's Republic, if a significant portion of its youth decides to lie flat? Moreover, Tang challenges some of the core values that the CCP has been promoting: hard work, sacrifice for the collective good, and faith in the party's vision for the future. In the eyes of the authorities, it's not just an economic threat, but an ideological one. The government's response has been multifaceted. On the censorship front, it has moved to suppress online discussions of Tang The original Tieba post that sparked the movement was deleted. Search terms related to Tang have been restricted on social media platforms. Online groups dedicated to discussing the lifestyle have been shut down. Even merchandise featuring Tang slogans has been banned from e-commerce sites. But the CCP's approach goes beyond mere censorship. It's engaged in a broader campaign to reshape the narrative around work, success, and social responsibility. State media has been flooded with stories celebrating hardworking individuals who've achieved success through perseverance. The party has doubled down on promoting the Chinese dream, Xi Jinping's vision of national rejuvenation that emphasizes collective effort and sacrifice. Consider the case of Li Wei, a young factory worker in Guangdong province. After expressing sympathy for Tang ideas on social media, he found himself summoned for a conversation with his employer's party secretary. They told me my attitude was harmful to the company and the country, Lee recounts. They said if I wanted to keep my job, I needed to show more enthusiasm and commitment. Lee's experience is not unique. Many companies, especially state-owned enterprises, have taken it upon themselves to root out Tang Ping's sentiments among their workforce. The government's concern extends beyond the workplace. There's fear that Tang Ping could exacerbate some of China's looming demographic challenges. With a rapidly aging population and a declining birth rate, China needs its young people to be productive workers and eager consumers. The specter of a generation opting out of this role is deeply troubling to policymakers. In a speech that was widely interpreted as a rebuke to Tang Ping, Xi Jinping himself weighed in. Without mentioning the movement by name, he called on China's youth to abandon illusions and dare to struggle. He emphasized the need for hard work and dedication to achieve the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. But here's where things get really interesting. Despite the government's best efforts, Tang Ping has proven remarkably resilient. Like water finding its way through cracks in a dam, the movement has adapted to censorship, evolving its language and methods of communication. When Tang Ping became too sensitive a term, supporters began using homophones or coded language to discuss the concept. The phrase, "let it rot, buy land," emerged as a sort of spiritual successor, expressing an even more nihilistic attitude towards societal pressures. Take the case of the Sang culture that predated Tang Ping. This subculture, characterized by a sense of defeatism and disillusionment, managed to thrive despite official disapproval. It spawned countless memes, including the popular Gudetama character, a lazy egg yolk that resonated with many young Chinese. The persistence of these cultural trends suggests that the underlying frustrations fueling Tang Ping won't be easily suppressed. Moreover, the government's heavy-handed approach may be backfiring in some ways. By treating Tang Ping as a threat, authorities have inadvertently given it more power and significance. Many young people see the crackdown as further evidence that the system is stacked against them, reinforcing their desire to opt out. The more they try to force us to work ourselves to death, the more appealing Tang Ping becomes, says Zhao, a 25-year-old graphic designer in Shanghai. It's like they're proving our point for us. The battle over Tang Ping also highlights the CCP's broader challenges in governing an increasingly complex and diverse society. The party's traditional top-down approach to social management is struggling to cope with decentralized, internet-driven movements. It's a clash between the old ways of maintaining control and the new realities of the digital age. Some observers argue that the government's reaction to Tang Ping reveals a fundamental insecurity. They're afraid of any ideology that doesn't align perfectly with official narratives, says Dr. Li, a sociologist at a prominent Beijing university who asked to remain anonymous. But in trying to stamp out these ideas, they risk alienating the very generation they need to win over. Indeed, the Tang Ping controversy has sparked broader discussions about the nature of work, success, and happiness in Chinese society. Even among those who don't fully embrace the lifestyle, there's growing recognition that the current model of relentless competition and overwork is unsustainable. As we consider the government's response to Tang Ping, it's worth asking, what are the long-term consequences of suppressing such movements? Can a society truly thrive if it doesn't allow space for alternative viewpoints and lifestyles? And how will the tension between individual desires and state goals play out in the coming years? These are questions without easy answers, but they're crucial to understanding the evolving relationship between the Chinese state and its citizens, particularly the younger generation. As we move forward in our exploration, keep in mind this complex dance between control and resistance, between official narratives and grassroots movements. It's a dynamic that will shape not just the future of Tang Ping, but the future of China itself. 4. Global parallels: Tang Ping, quiet quitting, and anti-work movements worldwide. Now, my intrepid listeners, let's zoom out and place Tang Ping in a broader global context. Because as unique as this movement might seem, it's actually part of a worldwide trend of young people questioning traditional notions of work, success, and the good life. From quiet quitting in the United States to the lying flat movement in South Korea, from ikigai in Japan to the anti-work subreddit that's exploded in popularity. We're seeing a global pushback against hustle culture and the idea that our worth is defined by our productivity. Let's start with quiet quitting, a term that went viral on TikTok in 2022. Despite its name, quiet quitting isn't about leaving your job. Instead, it's about doing exactly what your job requires, no more, no less. Sound familiar? It's remarkably similar to the core tenets of Tang. Consider the case of Sarah, a 28-year-old marketing executive in New York. I used to be the first one in the office and the last to leave, she says. I'd answer emails at all hours, take on extra projects, all in the hopes of getting ahead. But one day I realized I was miserable and my personal life was in shambles. Sarah's solution? She started setting boundaries, leaving work on time, and refusing to let her job consume her life. My boss wasn't thrilled, she admits, but my mental health has improved dramatically. Sarah's story could easily be that of a Tang adherent in Beijing or Shanghai. The parallels are striking, highlighting how the pressures and discontents fueling these movements transcend national borders. Moving to South Korea, we find a movement that's even more explicitly connected to Tang. Known as Tang in Korean as well, it emerged around the same time as its Chinese counterpart and shares many of the same principles. In a country infamous for its intense work culture and cutthroat education system, young Koreans are increasingly saying, enough is enough. Take the story of Kim Jun-ho, a former Samsung employee who quit his prestigious job to run a small cafe on Jeju Island. I was making good money, but I felt like a hamster on a wheel, he says. Now I make less, but I have time to surf, to read, to actually live my life. I'm so much happier. In Japan, while there isn't a direct equivalent to Tang, we can see similar themes in the country's evolving relationship with work. The concept of ikigai, finding one's purpose or reason for being, has gained traction as an alternative to the traditional salaryman lifestyle of complete devotion to one's company. Japan is also grappling with the phenomenon of hikikomori, people who withdraw completely from society, often staying in their rooms for months or years at a time. While more extreme than Tang, it stems from some of the same pressures and disillusionment with societal expectations. The story of Taro, a 35-year-old former hikikomori, is illuminating. I felt overwhelmed by the pressure to succeed, to fit into the mold of what a good Japanese man should be, he explains. Withdrawing was my way of rejecting all of that. After years of isolation, Taro has re-engaged with society on his own terms, working part-time and pursuing his passion for art. I'm still not living the life my parents wanted for me, he says, but I'm living a life that feels authentic to me. In the West, we see these themes playing out in various ways. The FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, encourages people to live frugally and invest aggressively with the goal of retiring in their 30s or 40s. While different in its methods, FIRE shares with Tang a desire to escape the traditional work till you're 65 paradigm. Then there's the explosive growth of the anti-work subreddit, which gained millions of subscribers during the COVID-19 pandemic. This online community serves as a forum for people to vent about toxic work cultures, share strategies for resisting exploitation, and imagine alternatives to the current economic system. The pandemic itself has been a major catalyst for these movements worldwide. As lockdowns forced many to work from home, people got a taste of a different way of living. They spent more time with family, picked up new hobbies, and questioned whether returning to the old grind was really necessary or desirable. COVID made me realize how much of my life I was wasting commuting and sitting in an office, says Mark, a software developer in London. Now that we're supposed to go back to normal, I'm resisting. I'm looking for remote work, even if it pays less. The freedom and flexibility are worth more to me than a bigger paycheck. What all these movements share is a fundamental questioning of the social contract that's governed much of the world since the Industrial Revolution. Work hard, climb the ladder, accumulate wealth and status. In its place, they propose alternative visions of success and fulfillment that prioritize personal well-being, freedom, and meaning over material gain and social status. But it's important to note that while these movements share common themes, they're shaped by their specific cultural and economic contexts. Tang in China is inextricably linked to the country's rapid economic transformation and the unique pressures of its political system. Quiet quitting in the US is tied to long-standing debates about work-life balance and the gig economy. South Korea's Tang movement is influenced by the country's ultra-competitive education system and hierarchical corporate culture. Moreover, the global nature of these trends highlights how interconnected our world has become. Ideas and movements can spread rapidly across borders, resonating with people in vastly different societies. The internet, social media, and global popular culture have created a shared language of discontent and aspiration among young people worldwide. Consider how K-pop star Suga of BTS sparked a global conversation about burnout and mental health when he spoke about feeling trapped by his career and needing to step back. His words resonated not just with fans in Korea, but with young people around the world who felt similarly overwhelmed by societal pressures. As we reflect on these global parallels, it's worth asking, are we witnessing the early stages of a fundamental shift in how people around the world relate to work and define success? Or are these movements merely a temporary reaction to the unique stresses of our current moment? The answer, as is often the case, likely lies somewhere in between. While it's unlikely that we'll see a wholesale rejection of work or ambition, these movements are forcing a reassessment of long-held assumptions about what constitutes a good life and a successful career. As we continue our exploration, keep in mind this global context. Tang isn't just a Chinese phenomenon. It's part of a worldwide conversation about the future of work, the nature of fulfillment, and the balance between individual desires and societal expectations. It's a conversation that's likely to shape our world for years to come. 5. Economic implications. How Tang challenges China's growth model. Now, let's roll up our sleeves and dive into the nitty-gritty of economics, shall we? Because make no mistake, while Tang might have started as a lifestyle choice, its potential economic impacts are sending shockwaves through the halls of power in Beijing. To understand why, we need to take a quick trip back in time. For the past 4 decades, China's economic miracle has been built on a few key pillars: an abundant supply of cheap labor, a culture of hard work and sacrifice, and a population willing to defer gratification in pursuit of future prosperity. This model turned China into the world's factory and propelled it to become the second largest economy on the planet. But here's the rub. Tang threatens to kick those pillars out from under the entire edifice. Let's break it down, shall we? First, there's the labor supply issue. China's working-age population has already begun to shrink, a demographic time bomb resulting from the one-child policy. The last thing policymakers need is for young people to voluntarily remove themselves from the workforce or reduce their productivity. Yet that's exactly what Tang advocates. Consider the case of Zhang Wei, a 32-year-old engineer in Shenzhen. After embracing Tang he quit his job at a major tech company and now works part-time as a delivery driver. "I make enough to cover my basic needs," he says. "Why should I kill myself working 70-hour weeks just to make someone else rich?" Zhang's story is becoming increasingly common, and it's giving economists sleepless nights. Then there's consumption. China's leadership has been trying to shift the economy towards a more consumption-driven model, reducing reliance on exports and infrastructure investment. But Tang explicitly rejects consumerism. Its adherents are more likely to mend a shirt than buy a new one, more inclined to share a meal at home than dine out at a fancy restaurant. "I used to shop all the time to relieve stress," admits Li Na, a 27-year-old Tang convert in Guangzhou. "Now I realize most of that stuff didn't make me happy. I'm spending less and feeling more content." While Li's personal finances might be healthier, her reduced spending is exactly what worries those tracking China's economic indicators. The housing market, a crucial engine of China's economy, is particularly vulnerable to the Tang ethos. For years, buying property has been seen as a necessary step in life, a prerequisite for marriage and a secure future. But with home prices in major cities soaring far beyond what average salaries can support, many young people are simply opting out. "Why should I enslave myself to a 30-year mortgage for a tiny apartment?" asks Huang Jia, a 29-year-old Tang adherent in Beijing. "I'd rather rent a small place and have the freedom to pursue my interests." This attitude, if it spreads, could have seismic effects on a property market that some analysts already worry is a bubble waiting to burst. But the economic implications of Tang go beyond just consumption and labor supply. It's challenging some of the fundamental assumptions that have driven China's development strategy. For decades, local officials have been incentivized to prioritize GDP growth above all else. This has led to a frenzy of construction projects, industrial expansion, and urban development. But what happens when a significant portion of the population decides that GDP growth doesn't necessarily translate to a better quality of life? The story of Yichun, a city in Jiangxi province, is instructive. Once a booming center of rare earth mining, Yichun invested heavily in new industrial parks and residential developments, expecting continued growth. But as environmental concerns led to mining restrictions and young people increasingly left for bigger cities, many of these projects now sit half-empty. It's a stark reminder of the risks of assuming that yesterday's growth model will work for tomorrow. Tang also poses challenges to China's ambitions in high-tech industries. The country's leadership has set aggressive goals for dominance in fields like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnology. But achieving these goals requires a highly skilled, highly motivated workforce willing to put in long hours in research and development. Dr. Chen, a professor of computer science at a top Beijing university, worries about this trend. "I'm seeing more and more of my best students opt for easier career paths," he says. They're brilliant minds who could be pushing the boundaries of AI or solving critical problems in cybersecurity. Instead, they're choosing jobs that allow them more free time. It's their right, of course, but I fear for what it means for our country's technological ambitions. The gig economy, which has been a major source of job creation in China in recent years, is another area feeling the effects of Tang. While some Tang adherents embrace gig work for its flexibility, others are pushing back against its often exploitative nature. Take the case of the food delivery industry. In 2018, China had over 7 million food delivery riders. But a series of exposés about harsh working conditions, coupled with the growing Tang sentiment, has led to labor shortages in the sector. Some platforms have had to raise wages and improve conditions, eating into their profit margins. Yet, it's important to note that not all economists view Tang as an unmitigated negative. Some argue that it could push China towards a more sustainable and balanced economic model. By prioritizing quality of life over raw GDP growth, Tang might accelerate the shift towards a more service-oriented, innovation-driven economy. In the long run, a workforce that's less stressed and more fulfilled could actually be more productive and creative, argues Dr. Liu, an economist at Fudan University. The challenge is managing the transition without causing too much disruption. Indeed, some companies are already adapting to this new reality. Tech giant Tencent, for instance, has introduced a 10-65 working schedule, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., 5 days a week, in some departments, moving away from the notorious 996 culture. While it's too early to judge the results, it's a sign that even major corporations are recognizing the need to address the concerns driving Tang. As we ponder the economic implications of Tang, it's worth asking some big questions. Can China continue its economic rise if a significant portion of its youth opt out of the rat race? Is it possible to maintain high growth rates while also prioritizing individual well-being and sustainability? And how might the answers to these questions reshape not just China's economy, but the global economic order? These are complex issues without easy answers. But one thing is clear. Tang is forcing a re-evaluation of economic priorities and assumptions that have held sway for decades. As we move forward in our exploration, keep in mind that the economic impacts of this movement extend far beyond individual lifestyle choices. They touch on fundamental questions about the nature of progress, the measure of societal success, and the future of work in an increasingly automated world. 6. The psychology of burnout. Why young Chinese are choosing to lie flat. Now, let's delve into the minds behind the movement. To truly understand Tang, we need to explore the psychological factors driving young Chinese to reject the rat race and embrace a life of lying flat. At its core, Tang is a response to burnout, a state of physical and emotional exhaustion caused by prolonged stress and overwork. But this isn't just your garden variety tiredness. We're talking about a deep, soul-crushing fatigue that leaves people questioning the very foundations of their lives. Consider the story of Mei Ling, a 28-year-old former marketing executive in Shanghai. I was working 14-hour days, 6 days a week, she recounts. I was constantly anxious, I couldn't sleep, I was having panic attacks. One day, I just couldn't get out of bed. That's when I knew something had to change. Mei Ling's experience is far from unique. It's a pattern repeated across China's cities, in industries from tech to finance to manufacturing. But why is burnout so prevalent in China? To understand this, we need to look at a perfect storm of cultural, economic, and social factors. First, there's the intense pressure for academic achievement that starts from a young age. The Gaokao, China's notoriously difficult college entrance exam, looms large in the lives of Chinese students. Families often invest enormous resources, both financial and emotional, in preparing their children for this test, seen as the gateway to a successful future. I can't remember a time when I wasn't studying, says Lu Wei, a 25-year-old who recently embraced Tang. From elementary school through university, it was always about the next test, the next credential. By the time I entered the workforce, I was already exhausted. This academic pressure doesn't end with university admission. The competition continues through college and into the job market, where a degree from a top university is often seen as a minimum requirement for desirable positions. Then there's the economic reality facing young Chinese. Despite China's economic growth, many young people feel that the fruits of this prosperity are increasingly out of reach. Skyrocketing housing prices in major cities mean that homeownership, long considered a prerequisite for marriage and starting a family, feels like an impossible dream for many. I did everything right, says Zhang Yang, a 30-year-old software engineer. I studied hard, got into a good university, landed a job at a top tech company. But even with my salary, I can barely afford to rent a tiny apartment, let alone buy one. What's the point of all this struggle if I can never get ahead? This sense of futility is compounded by the perception of a widening wealth gap and limited social mobility. Many young people feel that unless they were born into wealth or have the right connections, no amount of hard work will allow them to achieve the lifestyle they desire. Social pressures also play a significant role. In Chinese culture, there's often intense family pressure to achieve success, usually defined in terms of a prestigious job, high salary, home ownership, and marriage. This can create a sense of constant inadequacy and failure among those who don't meet these expectations. Take the case of Chen Mei, a 27-year-old who quit her job as an accountant to pursue a simpler lifestyle. Every time I visited home, it was the same questions, she says. When will you buy a house? When will you get married? Why isn't your salary higher? It was like nothing I did was ever good enough. The ubiquity of social media adds another layer of psychological pressure. Platforms like WeChat and Xiaohongshu are filled with carefully curated images of success and luxury, creating unrealistic standards and fueling feelings of inadequacy and FOMO, fear of missing out. I used to spend hours scrolling through my feeds, seeing classmates posting about their promotions, their new cars, their fancy vacations, admits Wang Fei, a 26-year-old Tang adherent. It made me feel like a failure, even though I had a decent job and a comfortable life. Now, I've deleted most of my social media. I'm much happier focusing on my real life rather than comparing myself to others online. The COVID-19 pandemic has also played a role in accelerating burnout and driving people towards Tang. For many, lockdowns provided a forced pause, a chance to step off the treadmill and reassess their priorities. During lockdown, I realized how much of my life I'd been wasting on a job I hated, says Li Na, a former sales representative. I had time to read, to cook, to connect with my family. It made me question why I was working so hard for things that didn't really make me happy. But perhaps the most insidious factor contributing to burnout is the internalization of hustle culture. Many young Chinese have absorbed the idea that constant work and self-improvement are not just necessary for success, but morally virtuous. This can lead to intense feelings of guilt and anxiety when they're not being productive. Dr. Zhang, a psychologist in Beijing who has treated many patients struggling with burnout, explains, "Many of my clients feel a deep sense of shame when they take time to rest or pursue hobbies. They've internalized the idea that any time not spent working or improving themselves is wasted. It's a recipe for burnout and depression. In this context, Tang can be seen as a radical act of self-care and psychological liberation. By rejecting the pressures to constantly achieve and compete, Tang adherents are reclaiming their mental health and asserting their right to define success on their own terms. Choosing to lie flat was the hardest decision I've ever made, but also the most liberating, says Xu Jian, a former finance worker turned freelance writer. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm living for myself, not for my parents' expectations or society's definition of success. However, it's important to note that embracing Tang isn't always a panacea for mental health issues. Some find that the loss of structure and purpose that comes with rejecting conventional career paths can lead to its own form of existential crisis. At first, Tang felt like freedom, admits Zhao Wei, who quit his job as a programmer 2 years ago. But after a while, I started to feel lost. I had to do a lot of soul searching to figure out what I actually wanted from life, beyond just not being stressed all the time. This highlights an important aspect of Tang. It's not just about rejecting the status quo, but about actively seeking a more meaningful and balanced way of living. Many Tang adherents speak of using their newfound time and mental space to explore their passions, deepen their relationships, or contribute to their communities in non-traditional ways. As we consider the psychology of burnout and the appeal of Tang, it's worth asking some deeper questions. How can societies balance the drive for economic progress with the need for individual well-being? Is it possible to create systems that allow for ambition and achievement without fostering toxic stress and burnout? And how might the insights gained from the Tang movement inform broader conversations about mental health and work-life balance around the world? These are complex issues that touch on fundamental aspects of human psychology, social organization, and the very nature of fulfillment and success. As we continue our exploration, keep in mind that Tang is not just a rejection of overwork, but a search for a more sustainable and meaningful way of living. It's a psychological revolution that could have far-reaching implications for how we think about work, success, and the good life in the 21st century. 7. Digital expressions of Tang. Memes, social media, and online communities. Alright, digital natives and meme enthusiasts, buckle up. We're about to dive into the vibrant, often hilarious, and sometimes subversive online world of Tang. Because let's face it, in the age of the internet, no social movement is complete without its own ecosystem of memes, hashtags, and virtual gathering spaces. Tang may be about lying flat, but its online presence is anything but dormant. From WeChat groups to Douban forums, from Bilibili videos to Weibo hashtags, the digital expressions of Tang have become a cultural phenomenon in their own right. Let's start with the memes, shall we? One of the most iconic images associated with Tang is that of a person literally lying flat, often in unexpected or absurd situations. Picture a businessman in a suit, briefcase by his side, sprawled face down on a subway platform. Or a student, surrounded by textbooks, prone on a library table. These images, often accompanied by captions like, "Professional Tang expert," or, "When the Gaokao prep gets too real," spread like wildfire across Chinese social media. I created my first Tang meme as a joke, says Li Wei, a 22-year-old graphic design student. I photoshopped my friend lying flat on top of the Great Wall. It was meant to be absurd, you know? But it resonated with people. It got shared thousands of times. Li's experience is testament to the power of humor in spreading the Tang message and building a sense of community among like-minded individuals. Another popular meme format plays on corporate motivational posters. Instead of inspiring quotes about success and hard work, these parody versions feature slogans like, "Work is temporary," "Tang is forever," or, "Why climb the corporate ladder when you can lie comfortably on the ground floor?" These memes serve a dual purpose. They're funny, yes, but they also offer a biting critique of hustle culture and corporate propaganda. Emojis and stickers have also become an important part of the Tang visual language. The lying face emoji has been embraced as an unofficial symbol of the movement. Custom sticker sets featuring characters in various states of lying flat are shared widely on messaging apps like WeChat and QQ. But the digital expressions of Tang go far beyond just memes and emojis. Online communities have sprung up where people share their Tang experiences, offer advice on downsizing their lifestyles, and provide emotional support to those struggling with the decision to lie flat. One of the largest of these communities was the Tang Youth Group on Douban, which at its peak had over 200,000 members before being shut down by censors. Don't worry, we'll get to the censorship issue in a bit. The group served as a virtual town square for the Tang movement, hosting discussions on everything from minimalist living tips to philosophical debates about the nature of work and happiness. When I first stumbled upon the Tang Youth Group, it was like finding my tribe, says Zhang Mei, a 26-year-old former HR professional. Suddenly, I wasn't alone in feeling overwhelmed and disillusioned. There were thousands of others who understood exactly what I was going through. Zhang's experience highlights the crucial role these online spaces play in validating people's feelings and creating a sense of solidarity. Video platforms like Bilibili have become another important arena for Tang expression. A day in the life of a Tang practitioner, videos have become a popular genre, often featuring young people documenting their simple, low-stress lifestyles. These videos range from the mundane, brewing tea, reading in the park, to the aspirational, quitting a high-stress job, moving to a small town. One particularly viral video featured Xu Jian, a former software engineer who left his job in Shenzhen to become a goat herder in rural Yunnan province. The video, which showed Xu's tranquil daily routine of tending to his goats and enjoying the mountain scenery, racked up millions of views and thousands of comments. I made the video to show that there are alternative ways of living, Xu explains. So many people messaged me saying it inspired them to reconsider their own life choices. It was overwhelming. Xu's video tapped into a deep well of desire for a simpler, less stressful existence, a core tenet of the Tang philosophy. Of course, not all Tang content is so bucolic. Satirical skits poking fun at toxic work culture are also popular. One memorable series featured a character called Tang Zhe, Brother Tang, navigating absurd workplace scenarios with deadpan humor and a steadfast refusal to overwork himself. Hashtags have played a crucial role in organizing and spreading Tang discourse. Hashtag Tang hashtag Choose to Lie Flat, and number 996 is poisonous have trended at various times on Weibo, China's Twitter-like platform. These hashtags serve as rallying points for discussion and help Tang adherents find each other in the vast sea of social media. But here's where things get tricky. As Tang gained popularity online, it also attracted the attention of censors. Keywords related to the movement have been periodically blocked or restricted on major platforms. When this happens, Tang adherents get creative, using homophones, intentional misspellings, or coded language to evade detection. For instance, when Tang became too sensitive, some users switched to Ping Tang, flat sugar, a playful reversal that maintained the essence of the original term while flying under the censor's radar. This linguistic cat-and-mouse game has become a hallmark of online Tang discourse. The challenges of censorship have led some Tang communities to migrate to more secure platforms. Encrypted messaging apps and decentralized forums have become havens for frank discussions about work, life, and the philosophy of lying flat. We had to go underground, in a sense, says Chen Lei, a moderator for several Tang chat groups. But in some ways, that's made our community stronger. There's a real sense of camaraderie when you're sharing forbidden ideas. This brings us to an important point. The digital expressions of Tang aren't just about entertainment or venting frustrations. They're a form of soft resistance, a way for young Chinese to push back against societal pressures and assert their right to choose a different path. Take the case of the 495 International, loosely organized online group that advocates for a 9-to-5, 5-day workweek, as opposed to the grueling 996 schedule. Members share legal resources about labor rights, offer advice on negotiating with employers, and celebrate small victories in their quest for work-life balance. It's Tang in action, using digital tools to effect real-world change. The online world of Tang has also given rise to a new lexicon. Terms like involution, niwan, neiwan, which describes the sense of running faster and faster just to stay in place, have entered popular discourse thanks to Tang adjacent online discussions. This evolving language provides new ways for people to articulate their experiences and frustrations with modern life. As we reflect on the digital expressions of Tang, it's worth considering some bigger questions. How do online spaces shape and amplify social movements? What role does humor play in spreading subversive ideas? And how might the creative ways Tang adherents evade censorship inform broader discussions about internet freedom and digital resistance? These are complex issues that touch on the nature of community, the power of shared language, and the role of the internet in shaping cultural narratives. As we continue our exploration, keep in mind that the memes, videos, and online discussions we've explored aren't just digital ephemera. They're the building blocks of a new cultural paradigm, one that's challenging long-held assumptions about work, success, and the good life in the digital age. 8. Beyond Tang. Related trends like Bailan, Let It Rot, and Sang culture. Alright, cultural explorers, it's time to venture beyond the borders of Tang into some closely related territories. Because as influential as the lying flat movement has been, it's just one part of a broader tapestry of youth subcultures and attitudes reshaping Chinese society. Today, we're going to explore two of these related phenomena: Bailan, which translates to Let It Rot, and the earlier Sang culture, Sang Hua. Let's start with Bailan. If Tang is about passive resistance, opting out of the rat race by doing the bare minimum, Bailan takes things a step further. It's an attitude of active deterioration, of letting things fall apart rather than struggling to maintain a system you no longer believe in. The term Bailan originally comes from sports, where it described a team deliberately playing badly or throwing a game. But in 2022, it took on a new life as a social attitude, particularly among young Chinese facing seemingly insurmountable challenges. Consider the story of Wang Jia, a 26-year-old in Guangzhou. After years of 12-hour workdays trying to save for an apartment, Wang realized he was still nowhere close to his goal. One day, I just thought, why am I killing myself for this? He recounts. So I stopped trying. I do the bare minimum at work. I've given up on buying a house or getting married. I'm letting it all rot. Wang's attitude exemplifies the Bailan mindset, a kind of nihilistic surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. Bailan can be seen as a more extreme, more fatalistic cousin of Tang. While Tang adherents might still maintain some hope for a better, simpler life, Bailan embraces a kind of gleeful despair. It's the difference between lying down to rest and lying down because you've given up entirely. This attitude has manifested in various ways. On social media, Bailan has become a common response to news about rising housing prices, stagnant wages, or other economic challenges. Instead of expressing anger or determination to overcome, many young people react with a sort of nihilistic humor. Great, another reason to Bailan, is a typical comment. The Bailan attitude has even spawned its own fashion aesthetic, characterized by deliberately unkempt appearance and a rejection of style norms. Think unwashed hair, mismatched clothes, and a general air of not caring. It's a visual representation of the let it rot philosophy. I used to spend hours getting ready every day, says Li Mei, a 24-year-old office worker in Shanghai. Now, I roll out of bed and go to work in whatever I slept in. It's liberating, in a way. I'm letting my appearance rot along with my ambitions. Li's embrace of the Bailan aesthetic is both a personal choice and a form of social commentary, a visible rejection of societal expectations. But Bailan isn't just about personal appearance or individual attitudes. It's also being expressed in broader social behaviors. For instance, there's been a trend of young people deliberately underperforming at work or school, doing just enough to not get fired or fail, but no more. Take the case of Zhang Wei, a university student in Beijing. I used to be a top student, always striving for perfect scores, he says. Now, I aim for the lowest passing grade in every class. Why stress myself out for a system that doesn't care about me? Zhang's academic Bailan is a microcosm of a wider disillusionment with the promises of education and hard work. The Bailan mentality has even influenced consumer behavior. There's a growing trend of young people rejecting the pressure to buy homes, cars, or other status symbols. Instead, they're embracing a kind of anti-consumerism, spending money only on immediate pleasures or necessities. Why save for a future that feels hopeless? Asks Chen Xiao, a 27-year-old who's embraced the Bailan lifestyle. I spend my money on good food, nights out with friends, small comforts. If I can't have the big things society tells me I should want, at least I can enjoy the little things now. It's important to note that while Bailan might seem purely negative, it's also a form of resistance. By refusing to participate in systems they see as unfair or exploitative, Bailan adherents are, in their own way, pushing for change. Now, let's rewind a bit and look at an earlier predecessor to both Tang and Bailan, Sang culture. Emerging around 2016, Sang culture, Sang Huiyanhua, with sang meaning dejected or dispirited, represented a turn towards pessimism and self-deprecating humor among Chinese youth. Sang culture was characterized by a kind of performative sadness and resignation. It manifested in memes, fashion, and even consumer products. One of the most iconic symbols of Sang culture was Zhe Yu lying down, Zhe Yu Tang, an image of actor Zhe Yu slouching on a sofa, looking utterly defeated. This image became a hugely popular reaction meme, used to express feelings of exhaustion and giving up. Another Sang culture icon was a cartoon character called Pepe the Frog, which became popular in China for its dejected expression. Pepe's stickers and emojis were widely used to express feelings of frustration and hopelessness. When Sang culture first appeared, it felt like a revelation, recalls Wang Fang, a 29-year-old who was in university when the trend took off. Finally, there was a way to express the sense of hopelessness we all felt. It was depressing, but also oddly comforting to know we weren't alone in feeling that way. Sang culture also influenced fashion and consumer goods. Clothing brands released T-shirts with pessimistic slogans. Cafes offered Sang-themed menus with items like Black Heart Latte or Desperate Chocolate Cake. While Sang culture was often expressed through humor, it reflected real feelings of disillusionment and anxiety among young Chinese. It was a response to rising pressures around education, work, and social expectations, combined with a sense that the promise of continual economic growth and social mobility was fading. In many ways, Sang culture laid the groundwork for Tang and Bailan. It normalized expressions of dissatisfaction and created a shared language for talking about societal pressures and personal struggles. As we look at these three related phenomena, Sang culture, Tang and Bailan, we can see a progression. Sang culture expressed a feeling of hopelessness but still largely within the confines of participating in society. Tang advocated for opting out, for doing the minimum required to get by. Bailan takes this a step further, embracing a kind of active decay. This progression reflects the evolving attitudes of young Chinese as they grapple with the challenges of their rapidly changing society. It's a response to economic pressures, yes, but also to deeper questions about the meaning of success, the value of hard work, and the nature of a good life. These movements aren't just about being lazy or giving up, explains Dr. Liu, a sociologist studying youth culture in China. They're a cry for help, a demand for change. Young people are saying that the current system isn't working for them, that the promises they were raised with aren't being fulfilled. Indeed, while these trends might seem negative on the surface, they're also driving important conversations about mental health, work-life balance, and social equity. They're challenging long-held assumptions and forcing both individuals and institutions to reconsider their priorities. Moreover, these movements aren't happening in isolation. They're part of a global trend of young people questioning traditional paths to success and seeking alternative ways of living. From the Great Resignation in the West to Japan's Satori generation, youth around the world are pushing back against societal pressures and redefining what it means to live a good life. As we reflect on Sang culture, Tang and Bailan, it's worth asking some bigger questions. What do these movements tell us about the challenges facing young people in China and around the world? How might they shape the future of work, education, and social organization? And what can older generations and institutions learn from these expressions of youth discontent? These are complex issues without easy answers. But by understanding these cultural phenomena, We gain insight not just into contemporary China, but into the hopes, fears, and aspirations of a global generation coming of age in a time of unprecedented change and uncertainty. As we wrap up our exploration, it's clear that Tang, Bailan, and Sang culture are more than just internet trends or youthful rebellion. They're a mirror reflecting the complexities of modern life, the struggle to find meaning in a rapidly changing world, and the universal human desire for happiness and fulfillment. Whether lying flat, letting it rot, or embracing dejection, these movements remind us that sometimes the most powerful act of resistance is simply to exist on your own terms. Now, as we conclude our journey through the fascinating world of Tang and its related phenomena, let's take a moment to reflect on the broader implications of what we've discovered. Throughout this exploration, we've seen how a simple concept, lying flat, has evolved into a multifaceted cultural movement that's challenging fundamental assumptions about work, success, and the good life. We've delved into the economic pressures, psychological factors, and societal expectations that have given rise to Tang, Bailan, and Sang culture. These movements, born in China but resonating globally, offer a window into the hopes, fears, and frustrations of a generation coming of age in a time of unprecedented change and uncertainty. They remind us that beneath the surface of economic statistics and productivity metrics, there are real human beings grappling with questions of meaning, purpose, and happiness. From the meme-filled digital landscapes of Chinese social media to the quiet acts of resistance in workplaces and universities, we've seen how young people are finding creative ways to push back against a system they feel no longer serves their interests. Whether it's through humor, lifestyle choices, or simply opting out, they're asserting their right to define success on their own terms. But these movements aren't just about individual choices. They're forcing a broader societal reckoning with the costs of rapid development and intense competition. They're challenging governments, employers, and educational institutions to consider new ways of organizing work and society that prioritize well-being alongside productivity. As we look to the future, the questions raised by Tang and its offshoots will only become more pressing. In a world facing climate change, technological disruption, and growing inequality, how do we balance the drive for progress with the need for sustainability and human flourishing? How can we create systems that allow for ambition and achievement without fostering burnout and despair? These are questions that extend far beyond China's borders. From the gig economy workers of the West to the karoshi-plagued salarymen of Japan, people around the world are grappling with similar challenges. The specific expressions may differ, but the underlying concerns are universal. Perhaps the most powerful lesson of Tang is that there's no one-size-fits-all definition of a successful life. It's a reminder that amidst the noise of societal expectations and economic imperatives, we must each find our own path to meaning and fulfillment. As we conclude, I encourage you to reflect on your own relationship with work, success, and happiness. What would lying flat mean in your life? How might you find balance between ambition and well-being? And how can we collectively create a world that offers more paths to a good life than just endless striving? These are questions without easy answers, but they're questions worth asking. Because in the end, whether we choose to lie flat, let it rot, or keep climbing the ladder, we're all searching for the same thing: a life well lived, on our own terms. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the fascinating world of Tang. I hope it's given you new perspectives and plenty to think about. If you've enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more deep dives into the cultural phenomena shaping our world. And of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What's your take on Tang? How do you balance work and well-being in your own life? Until next time, reminding you that sometimes the most radical act is simply to exist, to be, and to find contentment in your own unique way of being in the world. Take care, and don't forget to lie flat every now and then. Your future self might thank you for it.